Next. Okay. So this is important for more for the mainland, but this is becoming, it's going to be the norm in Hawaii pretty soon with our colder winters. Um, but in order to make seed of biennials, such as orange carrots or beets, you need a certain amount of cold weather. Um, and usually it's between 41 and 50 degrees, but it can range anywhere from 32 to 60 degrees. So in Holihua in the summertime, I mean the wintertime, even this past year, especially from January to March, we had hardly had any rain. We had a lot of nights in the 50s, in the low 50s. And so we might be able to grow biennial seeds. We might be able to grow beets and orange carrots and crops like that. Um, but for in most instances, we cannot do biennials in Hawaii. Next. So seed processing. This is where the rubber meets the road. Knowing the crop is the first step in learning how to save its seed. Okay, so you need to be able to grow the crop because you're going to grow it beyond just the harvest stage. You're going to grow it so the seeds are mature. Knowing the variety, knowing the family, knowing how far apart you got to isolate the plants is really important, and also when to harvest the seed. Each crop is very specific in terms of processing the seed, and this class is just really a basic introductory course that requires more knowledge in moving into seed production. We're probably going to have a bunch of seed processing classes through the next year. There's a bunch of grants that came down. It's some grants, 2 grants from Molokai, 1 for the Big Island, and 1 a statewide grant, which I'm involved in, where we're going to have seed workshops throughout the state and a lot of hands-on to teach everybody how to do it. Next. So seed separation. I know we're probably going to, Jennifer and I talked about doing some videos and putting it on our YouTube site to show different methods of seed separation. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to separate the seed from the rubbish or the chaff. So in rice, you're going to separate the rice from the chaff. In tomatoes, you're trying to separate the flesh from the seed. So one thing we do is we use screens, and the screens, you're either screening out the rubbish or you're screening out the seeds, and just keep on going back and forth until you get most of the rubbish out. We also do winnowing. This is where we use fans, or I actually do it in the back door of our office. We have this wind blowing through the office, and I can use it to clean seeds such as lettuce. It'll just blow all the chaff out, and the seeds will drop into a bowl. Another way is doing floaters and sinkers, and this is with the last step in cleaning seeds, especially green onion, it has all these little stems in the seeds. So after we clean it as well as we can, we throw it in water, the seed sinks to the bottom, and all of the junk floats to the top. The same thing happens with tomatoes, and we'll talk more about it at our next class. Threshing and beating. A lot of times you have to open the seed pod, and it's not that easy. So sometimes you step on it, you break it open, you rub your hands together, you flail, you might hit it with a stick. I have a friend of mine in Oregon, Frank Martin, Wild Garden Seed. He dries his seeds on a blue tarp. He dries the seeds in a field, he covers with another blue tarp, and he runs it over with his old Datsun pickup truck to break up the seed pods and to get all the seeds out, especially for the mustards. Okay, so yeah, stepping, stomping, and running it over with a car, but you need to know which seeds to run over, with some of them you might destroy it. There's some seeds where they actually use fire to get it to germinate. I know on some of the native seeds, they use smoke. Another one is a lot of the seeds at Plant Material Center, they used to step on it. Okay, next. So this is winnowing in the back door of our office. I'm cleaning, I think that's mustard seed. This is Carinata kale, Ethiopian kale seeds. So I'll just run it going back and forth, and you can see the impurities in it, some kind of white dots going out, and the wind will just blow it out of the bowl, and all the seeds will drop in the bowl. And I'll do this several times before the seeds are really clean. Okay, next. And these are the seed screens. There's about 8 different sizes. You can get even more. I have I just bought a special one for lettuces. It's called a herringbone screen. It has oval shaped holes. They're not square like this one. And so oval seeds will drop through and then I can clean it. But it cost me $55. So some of the screens are kind of expensive, very specialized for doing certain kind of seeds. Next. So what is important after you clean the seeds is to do a germination test. I mean, did you do the seeds right? Did the seeds get wet? Did it rain just before you harvested and the seeds aren't good? So we have to test each lot. And so I try not to mix different batches of seed because you might have one bad batch and then you mix it up with the good ones and that's really screwed things up. So I soak paper towel in water, squeeze out the excess, and then I lay out a known number of seeds. And if it's just a few seeds, then I might just do 10. If it's a lot of seed, like a pound of lettuce, I might do 100 seeds. And I put it in a plastic bag. I mark the name of the crop, the variety, the lot, and the date. And then I check the seeds every so many days to see how many germinated. And then I convert that to percentage. So if I have 10 seeds and only 9 came up, that means that's a 90% germination rate. So all seeds should be germination tested, and especially when planting rows of a crop or when planting older seeds. What can happen is you buy seed and you think the seeds are really good, but it wasn't stored well. It was in a place where the sun was shining, like Home Depot in Kona, which I keep telling them, you guys got to take the seeds out of the sun. You start the seed and the seed doesn't come up, okay? And you might have planted them at a special time of the month, is just before the full moon. You're gonna plant it, it's gonna be ready at a certain date, and the seeds don't come up. So if you're not sure and you're planting a lot, I would do germination tests on seeds, not just on the new batches of seeds coming in. Okay, next. So this is what I do with squash. This is a crowning squash, a variety I got from Taiwan that it grows really well. It's a moshada squash, similar to the Filipino squashes you see around. Very productive. You can store it. You always got food somewhere. You can use it for decoration in the house, and when you're ready to eat it, you can eat it. So this is how you would do it. You just put the date on it, and then you check it every 3 or 4 days to see how many germinated. Next.
Okay, right quick, Glenn. I want to challenge everybody that they do a germination test on seeds that they may just have in the refrigerator, especially your older seeds that you may be looking to plant for the winter. I want to encourage everybody before we meet back on August the 23rd that you do a germination test, and then you can text us or email us and let us know what your germination rate was and what your crop was.
Okay, so there's national standards, germination standards. And if you don't meet that standard, you're usually not supposed to sell the seeds. But sometimes what you can do is you can put on the packet, it's lower germination, and we put in extra seeds. And when you know that, then when you plant the seeds, you need to know that, okay, I can't just plant 1 seed in a cell. I might have to plant 2 seeds in a cell because the germination rate is only 50%. And also it kind of tells you how much seed you need. So these are the standards. I grow seeds for the Hawaii Seed Growers Network. All the seeds are tested. I sometimes I do a quick and dirty test before I ship the seeds. It goes to the Big Island. They do a germination test, and then they send it to the Department of Agriculture. So we have a third party doing the test. And the last time I sent in some peppers, it was 100%, and the guys couldn't believe it. And what that means is that when the farmers buy the seed, they got 100% germination, you know. But these are the averages. So if you look at peppers, it's only 55. If almost more than half the seeds germinate, that's acceptable. So some of those seeds are a little harder to germinate, to have good seeds. So like eggplant and peppers are probably the best example of that. Harvested a bunch of lettuce last year. They're all hitting 85, 80, some went up to 90. And if I notice that the germination rate isn't high enough, I clean the seeds some more and I start taking out the lighter seeds. And that's how you increase the germination rate. Or you might even go through the seeds and you can see the junk seed. You just take all the junk seed out so you have all good seeds. Next. So seed storage is really, really important. And if you just have a few seeds, what I would do is store it like in a mayonnaise jar. Put all your seeds in a jar and keep it tight, because a lot of our refrigerators have there's too much humidity in the refrigerators. You're supposed to have a certain type of refrigerator to store seeds. One of our refrigerators is really good and the other one is not that good. One of them is really wet and the seeds can get wet. So when I put seeds in there, I put them all in plastic bags. Whereas the other refrigerator is really dry. I never see moisture in that refrigerator. So the rule of 100 is the humidity and the storage temperature needs to match up. And in Hawaii, the humidity is up. The average humidity in Hawaii is about 65%. So you want to be able to get your seeds a little bit lower than that. If the seeds get below 30, sometimes it can be troublesome especially if you have too much humidity, because what will happen is the water in the seed will freeze and it'll damage the seeds. The water crystals will actually damage the seeds. So you want to be able to dry them down. So moisture is a killer of seeds. You want to be able to dry your seeds as good as possible. I use fans. I used to use dehydrators and I don't, because I cooked some seeds. The dehydrator temperature is not good enough. You have to put another thermometer in there and you got to maintain that temperature. So it's not, the thermostat in dehydrators are not that accurate, so you can cook seeds. So the easiest way is in the sun, if you got a sunny day. If not, watch out. I have a window that I put on the south facing window, and this wind blows through and the sun shines on it and I can dry the seeds up. You can also use silica gel. I have this one over here that's real interesting. It's orange, and then when it grabs too much water, it turns to red or purple. So you can use silica gel. The technical guys use this moisture dehydrator. You put the seeds in and it kind of like sucks up all the moisture out of the seeds. But silica gel works. Drying it down using fans overnight, that'll dry it out. Okay, next.
Glenn, do you prefer plastic jars or glass jars?
I would say a jar that seals the best. So I would have to say the glass jars seal real good. I mean, the plastic, the tops can go on good, but throw that plastic in water and see if it sinks. The glass jars, you can have it airtight, especially the snapper type with the rubber, gasket on it. Those are really, they seal really well. Okay, so seed storage, store seeds in a range of 32 to 41 degrees. You have to realize that storage seeds are alive. They're actually, still living. By drying it up and by cooling it down, you slow the metabolic rate of the seeds. And the better job you do, the longer the seeds will last. I was teaching a Go Farm class in Hilo, Go Farm Hilo last week, and somebody asked that question, how long do seeds last? So a student at UH at around, I think it was like 2013, they found this a quart can of Manoa lettuce seed. And that seed was from 1977. They opened the seeds, they germinated it, and almost all of the seeds germinated. And that seed was 30 years old. The record is about 5,000 years old. They found some date palms in King Herod's palace in Israel, and the seeds grew. So, and that's a really dry place, a really low humidity place. So that makes sense. And a lot of times what they do, they'll find seeds hidden by squirrels, in the permafrost where it's really cold, and seeds like thousands of years old. They'll get the seeds and they'll be able to germinate those seeds. Okay. Again, the storage conditions are more influential than the age of the seeds in determining viability or the ability of the seeds to germinate. And again, moisture is the killer of seeds, more damaging than heat. But heat can be a problem. I mean, I give a gardener or a farmer a seed and I watch them go out the door. And what do? They throw the seed on the dashboard. I mean, that'll just kill your seeds. The temperature on the dashboard is usually like 90 degrees or even higher. And so temperature is not that good and moisture is even worse. Next. So what do you put on the seed packet? Excuse me, I'm just eating some Kulolo that somebody just dropped off. Name of the crop, name of the variety, and your date harvested or processed. And I might even put more information on. I might put in a lot number. Maybe I got some special seed that somebody sent me. I'll put their name on it. And then I also might put whether the seed is the OP, the F1 or F2. Next. So this is I saved seed from a hybrid. It's a really good variety. I just planted it again yesterday. And I'm trying to make seed for the next generation. Next. Seed lots. You want to be able to separate seeds from different batches that you harvest. Some crops, you cannot harvest all the seed at one time. Good example is, a good example would be like lettuce. Lettuce doesn't all the seed doesn't ripen at one time. The same thing with mustards. Basil is another example. So I'm still harvesting basil seed. I go out there almost every week and I harvest some seed. And there's a basil seed shortage in Hawaii. We don't have that. The UH variety is not available right now. So I've just been harvesting as much as I can. When you separate it in lots, if you have a bad batch, you can separate it from the good ones. You can actually test the different batches and say, okay, this one got wet somehow. Just before I harvested it, got wet and got disease in the seed. Okay, next. Well, controlling pests in seed. If you harvest seed and you put it on the side for a couple weeks or even a month that I've done, or 3 months, and then all kind of junk gets in there, you're gonna have problems with the seed. Beans and corn probably the best example because the weevils will get into the seed and they'll destroy the seeds. So if you're harvesting bean seeds or corn seeds, especially if you have it out, one way is to mix a small amount of diatomaceous earth and shake it around, and this will kill the weevils. The other way is to freeze the seed over a short time, like maybe a day, and you'll kill off the weevils. I remember leaving some seeds out, and all the gecko crap got in there, and I couldn't separate the gecko crap from the seeds because they're about the same size and the same weight. So now I have seeds with gecko crap in it. So next. So this is corn weevils. And they got into a batch of corn that I had over here. Next. Okay, you want to go some more? I want to open up for questions.
So does anybody have any questions at this time? We have about 15 more minutes. So Glenn, if you want to go do a couple of crops, we can if there aren't any questions.
Okay. Wait, the last one. This is a seed room in the middle of a yard in Oregon. There's a friend of mine, Alan Capular, and he was the one that started the first organic seed company, Seeds of Change. Then he started his own company, Peace Seeds, and he's well known for his varieties. And so he has them all in, see how he stores them? All in bottles and some in plastic. So you got a combination of everything. And so I give him a bunch of seeds, and anytime I need seeds, I just send him send them a line, said, I need some seeds, and they'll send me over some of his seeds. Okay, next. So one of the things that is really needed in Hawaii is breeding for Hawaii organic systems. And a lot of times you cannot just grab a hybrid variety that's developed for high input and grow it in an organic system. The plants require too much fertilizer and everything. You actually have to develop varieties for organic farmers. And this is becoming a real hot topic recently. There's a whole team of people developing organic varieties out of Oregon State, Washington State University, University of Wisconsin, and Wageningen University in the Netherlands, working together to develop varieties. And what they're doing is they're finding varieties that grow slower, that need less fertilizer, that have large root systems. That's some of the things that they're looking at. So organic farmers don't use real high yield, high input fertilizer. They use slow release, compost-based fertilizer. They might use green manure. They might use bone meal and blood meal. These kind of fertilizers. And crops develop, like say in Florida. Florida has a calcareous soil. That means a high calcium soil, or coral. And when you develop high yielding varieties in coral, if you don't have a high yielding fertilizer on your farm, or you don't have a lot of calcium on your farm, you're going to run into problems. And calcium is the biggest limiting factor in nutrition in Hawaii. We don't have the calcium. Along the shores, like Kalamaula, along the coast, Kawela in the lowlands, you have enough calcium. But for the most part, the upland areas of all the different islands, including the Big Island, Maui, Kauai, all the islands, do not have enough calcium. So you have to actually go in there and put in calcium. And I talked about that at the last class, about the different sources of calcium. So what works for Hawaii? One is to have a late maturing variety. And what this does is allows the plant to grow to a large size before it fruits. On the mainland, they have early maturing varieties because the snow is coming. So what we find is when we grow some of the varieties on the mainland, the plants are producing flower in the seedling stage. And once the plants start producing flowers, they don't grow as much. So we find ourselves pulling off all those flowers on the plants in the seedling stage and growing it up and keep on taking the flowers off until the plants grow into a large frame. Okay. Low input. Can your varieties grow with very little fertilizer? So all these, decades of breeding in the United States, all focused on selling a lot of fertilizer and developing high yielding varieties. And now this is really shifting with this whole crisis in the Ukraine and Russia. Russia has a dibs on a lot of the phosphorus fertilizer. We're having a hard time getting it. I had to wait a couple months to just get the fertilizer, and then I did some soil samples and said, "Oh heck, I don't need it. I'm going to use some other fertilizers." So this is creating problems globally with the shortage of certain types of fertilizers. The ability of the plants to handle tropical conditions. Okay, our tropical conditions are hot days and warm nights. If you look at a lot of the places in the United States, they don't have hot days and warm nights. They have hot days and cool nights. And those cool nights allow the plants to rest, to build up their carbohydrates, and to be ready for the next day. You take those varieties, you bring them into the tropics, and they go into cardiac arrest. Okay, their metabolic rate does not slow down at night. They're just like hyperventilating because of the warm temperatures. And this is common for lettuce, certain varieties of tomato, and even kale. And what you'll see is they have tip burn, or they're going to have blossom end rot. And this is where the temperatures are too high. The plants don't have enough time to rest, and the plant system cannot deliver the nutrients to the tip of the plant in time, and the plants just break down. Okay, and again, nutrient use efficiency, being able to give a little bit of fertilizer and have the plants respond. So this all comes down to breeding for these types of plants and getting more of a wild bloodline into these plants. The other area, tolerance to local diseases and pests. This is a big problem, but you cannot afford to control diseases. It's too costly. So you can find disease-resistant varieties. There's a lot of crops with resistance. Tomatoes, Hawaii has a lot of varieties with resistance to diseases. And then the other area, we buy vegetables with our eyes. We're looking at something that looks nice, that tastes good, new colors, such as purple cauliflowers and different kind of broccolis. So these are some of the priorities for breeding for organic systems in Hawaii. Next. So this is long eggplant. Hawaii grows some really nice eggplant, developed over the last decades. And an interesting story, in the early 90s, the university had a eggplant field day, long eggplant field day in Waimanalo. And this one farmer, Mr. Nita from Waianae, he came over and he said, your varieties are junk. My variety has twice as many eggplants as your variety. So they said, okay, give us your variety. So Mr. Nita gave them the variety, and sure enough, his variety has twice the yield of the Hawaii varieties. So what did UH do? They crossed his variety with their variety to make these new generations of, and these are some of them right here. This purple. These are actually two different varieties right here. This is Nita Molokai and Nita Waimanalo. So Nita crossed with Waimanalo long, and Nita crossed with Molokai long. So I met Mr. Nita in the mid-90s at a Farm Bureau conference in Honolulu. And I said, Mr. Nita, where did you get these seeds? And he said, oh, you know that store out East End? I said, well, there's only one store out East End. That old Filipino gardener next to the store, the neighborhood store. And so these varieties are from the Philippines. I remember that old man over there. And what makes these varieties different, it has a multiple fruiting habit. So instead of one fruit coming out, this one comes out with two fruits. So that's why it has twice the yield. And then the one on the right is a French white. My wife loves to grow this one. Really soft and tasty. We're just finishing the crop right now. And we can use it for spaghetti and pastas and all kind of other stuff. Next. So these are some of the varieties. In fact, the two main varieties are from Molokai. The Molokai Long and Nita are from Molokai. I don't know where Molokai Long was from. They said it was from a farmer on Molokai. There are some farmers that had a lot of eggplant varieties. One in particular I used to work with. It's called, he has a nickname, Johnny Pineapple, Johnny Keoholoa. And so I took him the Nita eggplant. He said, oh, I want to try this and I'm going to compare it to my varieties. And I said, well, how many varieties you got? He goes, I got 15 varieties of eggplant. So we planted this field of eggplant, all these different, he had black ones and purple ones. And I wish I saved some of those seeds. But after a year, you could pick out the Nita plants. That was the strongest plants. And a lot of the other plants had died. Okay. So new variety that came out, Pomoho Long Black, is a variety that a friend of mine developed, one of my classmates, Ken Takeda. And he had a variety, the UH variety, and he crossed it with a variety from the South Pacific that is resistant to root diseases. And then two other varieties. One is called Hamasaki, and resistant to a bacterial wilt, and Tolentino from Waianae. And we've been fooling around with, I've been growing the last three, the bottom three, for a couple of years now. I was involved in helping to develop some of these varieties. Okay, next. So this is a variety, I think it's either from France or Italy, but look how many fruits are on this guy. I mean, this plant used to just fall over. And actually the best way to grow eggplant, and I don't do enough of this, is to stake them. Go get a piece of wood, pound it in, and hold the plants up so they don't snap, and they can produce so much fruit. Okay, next. There's a farmer on Kauai, a friend of mine, interesting guy. His name was Shoken Kobashigawa. And so I was talking to him about eggplant. And I said, oh, how long you grow your eggplant? He says, oh, 7 years. I said, 7 years. I said, how do you do that? He says, I give him plenty chicken manure. And he grows his plants for 7 years. So when the plants get kind of weak, he cuts them back and then he lets it flush again. But that is definitely a record, 7 years for one eggplant. Okay. So how do we process eggplant seeds? We chop it up, we split it down the center. If I'm lazy, I might just pick it out with a knife, take the seeds out and just plant the seeds. But usually with the eggplants and the tomatoes and the peppers, you ferment them in a little water for a few days. And then the seeds are kind of pop out of the flesh. You wash it out in a colander, you remove the pulp, and the seeds, if you put it in water, the seeds will pretty much drop to the bottom and all the other junk will separate. And then you dry it in a warm, ventilated place. And you can dry it further with silica gel and then do all the stuff that we pack it in a seed packet, put in information, and then put it in the jar in the refrigerator. Okay, next, let's do one more. Okay, so the alliums include garlic chives, bulb onion, green onion, shallots, and leeks. So some of these can be grown in Hawaii. Garlic can be grown in Hawaii. Chives will flower in Hawaii. Garlic chives will flower in Hawaii. Garlic chives is a flat leaf that tastes like garlic. And then bulb onions take some effort, but you can grow bulb onion seeds. Green onion, a lot of varieties of seeds such as cobalt green onion, which is the main variety developed in Hawaii. And then shallots. Some shallots will develop seeds in Hawaii and some will not. Good example is the Filipino shallot will develop seeds. The Hawaiian shallot, akakai, will not develop seeds. Okay, and then leeks. I haven't seen leek seeds in Hawaii yet. Okay, next. So this is garlic. I have some friends in Washington that breed garlic and usually send me some. They're kind of busy the last couple of years, but this is a batch that came in, and a lot of these came out of the Middle East, some of the Russian republics, and there's so many different varieties. We're having a hard time really identifying which is the best one. Right now, based on trials on Oahu, the German white is one of the best varieties. They grow really big, big cloves. Next. So green onion. In Hawaii, we've had so many different green onions. A lot of families used to grow them in their backyard, the farmers. And it's from a variety called Allium fistulosum. Not easy to get the original ones because the Allium fistulosum is native to the border between Northwest China and North Korea. Really hard to get up there. But the Japanese have spent a lot of time breeding green onions, and they have all these different classifications. So Kujo, Kaga, Senju, that's the main ones. And then they have some of those monster ones that grow in Hawaii. You can use it for clear soups and stuff like that. A lot of different varieties. It kind of getting hard to find. In Hawaii in the past, what we used to have was what they call the splitting types. So you plant one and then it forms into a whole bunch of green onions, and then you just take the green onion and you separate it and you plant it out. And this is how we used to grow green onions for a long time. And then more recently, we started getting seeds, varieties that have seeds that we can see the seeds of. Next. So many different varieties. The main variety in Hawaii is Koba. I think came from South China. A farmer in Waianae got it, Kobayashi. The problems in using divisions versus seed is that you might have disease or insects on the piece and you plant it in the ground and now you're perpetuating the disease. And I've seen that over and over again. Some people even will treat it in Clorox, but you still got insects and diseases. Probably the worst insect is called onion thrips. And they make these white dashes and lines on the green onion. And you see it in a store a lot. I see it certain times of the year where the insect is really bad. Earlier this summer, around May, June, it got really bad. And a lot of the green onion in the store had all of those whitish dashes on it. So growing seed is preferred method of growing it. So you're not transferring the diseases. Green onion likes a little bit higher pH than most crops. The average pH range is usually 5.5 to 6.5. And green onion likes it in the the upper part. Because green onion has a shallow root system and it doesn't have a canopy, weeds can be a real challenge growing green onions. Okay, next. So it's so funny because when I was growing green onions, I didn't know how to complete it. And I called a friend of mine, Desmond Ogata. He runs the seed store at UH. And I said, how do you clean off that last bunch of stuff? He said, oh, I throw it in water. I said, no way. He said, yeah, I throw it in water. That's how everybody does it. I said, oh, that's new to me. So you take the seed heads and you see, I'll show some pictures of the seed heads. The seeds will turn black and they're ready to be harvested. You get the seed heads, you shake the seeds out, or you can rub it on a screen so it releases the seed. And then you separate the chaff from the seed with screens or by winnowing. And then the last cleaning, you put the seeds in water, all the junk floats up, you dump the junk, and then you got clean seeds. Then you just dry the seeds down and you package them. Okay, next. So this is the green onion seed production at the UH Volcano Research Station. I don't know if they're still doing it right now because they're short staffed, but I was fortunate to go to Taiwan in, about 7 years ago with a friend of mine, Alvin Huang, who's a UH food scientist, native of Taiwan. And we went to visit No News Seed Company. And No News said, what are you guys buying all this green onion seed? And he said, Alvin said, why? He said nobody buys this much green onion seed. He says, Hawaii was buying 300 to 400 pounds of green onion seed, in addition to the seeds that's growing in Hawaii. And I said, yeah, because we eat a whole lot of green onion. The green onion industry is worth somewhere between $3 and $5 million. That's how much green onion we eat. In addition to the stuff we grow in the backyard. I grow plenty of green onion in the backyard. But we eat a lot of green onion. Okay, next. So this is a carpenter bee pollinating the cobalt green onion. Okay. And if I had a different variety next to it, it'll cross. So these are the mature seed heads. You can see all the seeds in there. So what I'll do is I'll either cut the seeds off or I'll just shake it into a like a yogurt container, and I'll save the seeds this way. Next. This is the volcano station. So they have all the seed heads. They have it in this container. This has a screen on the bottom. The seeds will drop and go into this bottom container. Next. And this is the second to the last stage. So they'll grab all this up, they'll dump it in water, all the junk will float to the top, they decant, and then you got clean green onion seed. Okay, next. And this is the stage before the last one. So this is what I used to do and cleaning it. And that's when I called Desmond and Honolulu, said, I still got all this junk in the seed. He goes, just throw them in water. I said, no way. I said, throw it in water. So I threw it in water and then I dried it up and I had clean seeds. Okay, next. And you got all different varieties of green onion. These are some of the larger types. They have all different tastes. Some are really nice and sweet tasting. Some are, the green onions grown in Hawaii are just way ahead of any stuff that comes in from the mainland. Their green onions taste like, I don't know, paper or something. And a lot of them are really pungent and they don't have that sweetness of our green onions in Hawaii. Next. So this is another onion, a shallot that we use for green onion. The shallots were grown by the homesteaders since they arrived here. So it's been in families for a generation. Maui's family has perpetuated this crop for a long time. I got some from a nephew about 10 years ago. I've been keeping it going. I got about 5 gallons right now. I'm getting ready to stick them in the field. This doesn't make seeds. So you have to grow them by shallots or by the bulbs on the bottom, and you gotta keep them. You gotta keep planting them. Next. So planting in a field, we use it for green onion. It's one of the best tasting of them all. Nice sweetness, really good with poke. Had some of it last night. Next. And this is how we use it for green onion. So we just put it in clusters, and we can sell it. We can do all kinds of stuff with this guy. Sometimes we even freeze it if we run out. And this is bulb onion. grows really well in Holy Hoa. This year we had a really nice crop. We're still eating from our crop that we harvested in March. And the onions are really sweet. Molokai can grow really sweet onions. In the early 90s, UH was doing a test. It's called a pyruvic acid test, and they can test the sweetness of the onion. So I heard about it, and I was harvesting green onion, bulb onion. I had 3 varieties. So I gave it to them, and the rest of the onions all came from Maui. Like about 15 varieties came out of Maui, and I had 3 from Molokai. And I took first and third. So I know Molokai can grow really sweet onions, bulb onions. Next. And that's it for today. Any questions, comments?
Anybody? I know we went a little over. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I also want to remind everybody that next Thursday we'll be talking about herbs and spices. Excuse me, next Tuesday, the 16th, we'll be talking about herbs and spices from 12 to 1 on Live at Lunch, the same link. And then we will have our workshop and field day from 4 to 6 on the 16th out at the farm on the equipment and all the different tools that can be utilized. Don't forget to do your germination test. I want to encourage you because we are getting into time for fall planting, and want to make sure that your seeds are ready to go. If you're looking for some particular seed that you can't find, let us know. You'd have to do a germination test on it because our refrigerator looks about like that room that Glenn showed you a picture of. We've got some really old seeds that we are trying to clean out of the fridge. And so if there's something in particular, because you're attending, that you're looking for, let us know. And if we have, you're welcome to do a germination test and see if they'll work for you. Glenn, do you have anything else? If not, we'll see everybody back here on the 23rd for seeds again. Glenn?
Yep. Sounds
You
good.
Okie doke. Thank you guys for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday back here at Live at Lunch. Thank you and have a great week.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Glenn.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Okay, Glenn, we do have one request here.
Thank you.
Tara, do you see that? Tara would like to try some akakai, if there are any left.
Oh, she's in Hilo. Tell her to come to the Hamakua harvest on Sunday.
Oh, I think she just logged off. So I'll see if I have her information.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, bye.